Hey guys.
Today we're going to be doing a special video for National Diabetes Awareness Month. We're with our special guest, Dylan Lancaster.
Hello.
He is the founder of Dylan's Dogs for Diabetes, which is also known as D-Cubed. Dylan, did you want to start off by telling us a little bit about what D-Cubed is?
Yeah, so like you said, D-Cubed stands for Dylan's Dogs for Diabetes. What we do is we help improve the quality of life for type 1 diabetics mostly. What we do is we deal with service dogs. We help people get diabetic alert dogs, like my friend Theo down here, who is my diabetic alert dog. But we also have a couple other initiatives, just kind of general quality of life improvers.
What is a diabetic alert dog, and how do they help manage type 1 diabetes?
Yeah, so diabetic alert dogs are dogs, like this guy here, that have been specially trained to smell for changes in blood sugar, to then alert their owner and let them know when they're having different blood sugar movements. So, ooh, that was right on the mic, bud. That is actually what an alert looks like. So I'm going to check my blood sugar real quick while we're talking. But yeah, they just let you know when it's shifting. Some dogs are specifically trained to let you know if it's going high or low. Most of the companies that we work with, they train for just a single alert because it encourages people to actually look at their blood sugar more and things along those lines. He's alerting because I'm trending up a little bit. Had a little snack before we got here, so nothing crazy is happening. Just normal blood sugar movement and all that kind. But it's exactly what it looks like.
That was a great example. That was really good.
Serendipitous, yeah.
Could you share some stories about how these dogs have impacted your lives and the children who allowed receive these dogs?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with me real quick. When I was in high school, I had a very bad low blood sugar attack, like early in the morning, around 5 a.m. I'd gotten up to go to the kitchen to get some apple juice because I forgot to restock before I went to bed, and I woke up in an ambulance because I had started seizing. And the only way that my parents even knew to call anybody was because Theo went to the door of my dad's bedroom and just started whining and shaking at the door to get him to wake up. So, very heavy emergency situation, but shows the things that these dogs can do. And that's a command that some diabetic alert dogs are taught, called go tell, where they'll go and get other people involved in the dog owner's life and do the alert to another person. Some dogs learn it naturally, some dogs are trained directly, but it's really cool. And yeah, and then for other people, I mean, lots of similar stories, none is severe necessarily, but just general, I mentioned quality of life at the beginning, and they really do help with that so much because it's not, one, it's diabetes management without another needle or another piece of plastic or another medical device or anything like that. This is a friend. At their core, dogs are friends and companions, and so to have a friend, like a lifelong companion with you, that is also there to help manage this super serious chronic condition, it's just wonderful. So it's good. It's good for the mental. It's good for the emotional, and then also they do help manage diabetes, and having your blood sugars in a more stable place is life changing, especially if you are someone who's more on that brittle side of diabetes and super easily affected by sugar and insulin and dealing with those super sensitive highs and lows.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you teach all of the dogs that you send to kids? Do you teach all of them the go tell?
Yeah, so we don't do any training actually. That is, yeah, it comes with the name. It sounds like we do, but what we do is we partner with different trainers, kind of wherever it makes sense. So we mostly work in Alabama, North Alabama specifically. So we actually have partnered with, a service dog training company in super southern Tennessee. Is who we've been working a lot with recently. And then we have, just as the need arises, different people that we work with all over the country, because we've helped place around 16 dogs, somewhere in that ballpark, literally from California to the Carolinas. Literally, we've placed a dog in California, and we placed a dog in North Carolina.
That's pretty cool. So to go along with a little bit what you were saying, your mission is to make sure that money is never an obstacle for any of these kids. So how do you go about fundraising for the kiddos that don't exactly have that the support? So is it just the 5Ks and those things, or is there a little bit more to it?
Yeah. So we also have a team. We've recently partnered with a local grant writing business where they will go out and write grants for us pretty much at cost, which is absolutely incredible. I don't know if you guys are involved with grant writing at all, but it's a very arduous process.
Yes.
And so to have a professional who knows the game getting in there for D-Cubed is super helpful. It's also super nice because a lot of those grants are going to our like cost for our larger fundraisers, like the 5K, which means that we're able to set really meetable kind of like prices for recommended donations and things along those lines for our contributors and our donators. And so a lot of it comes from grants as well as the stuff like the 5K and things like that. And every once in a while, we'll go out and table at different local events. So over in July, we tabled at a local hot dog eating contest, which was super cool. We also do other things where businesses can buy sponsorship space. We've partnered both with local businesses who will display different things. I think they were paw prints is what we did. And so we would display those in different restaurants and local like grocery stores and stuff like that up in Huntsville. And people would be able to have a little paw print with D-Cubed on it, and D-Cubed's information would be like somewhere small in the bottom corner, and then the sponsor's information, whether that was just like a person or a family, a business, a school, would be like large on the paw print, supports D-Cubed, kind of like a dual advertising thing.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, we do initiatives like that a lot as well.
So when you first learned about Diabetic Alert Dogs, how did you feel, and what inspired you to not only get one, but also to share that inspiration and that joy with others?
Yeah, so I learned about Diabetic Alert Dogs in third grade in social studies. We were studying, I think, like disabilities in general, and started talking about service animals. And so I learned, about your typical service dogs, like people that are mobility aids for blind people or with like mobility issues and things along those lines. And then I learned that there were like service monkeys and even like service ponies and things along those lines. And I was like, okay, if there are service monkeys for people that have like severe movement issues, there's got to be a service dog that helps with diabetes. And so we went out, and my family and my parents are super supportive, and they love learning. My mother's a teacher. So we went out and we looked up, got some information, and it turned out there were Diabetic Alert Dogs. It's a pretty like generally large section of the service dog community, which we were not expecting because we'd never heard of them before. But yeah, it was super exciting to learn that was an option. And then when I did, I was like, I have to get one of these things. It's best friend and helps me with my blood sugar. And at the time, I think all diabetics will eventually experience this phase, and everyone has this different responses to it. But the phase of I don't want any more medicine. Please give me something living to help me, or I'm going back to basics and just doing finger sticks and shots. So I was kind of going through that phase of like, I don't want any more devices or needles or anything. Give me anything that will help me that's not that. And then right as that was kind of coming to like a really frustrating point for me, we found Diabetic Alert Dogs, and it was super awesome. And like I said, I decided I wanted to get one. And as I was thinking about it, I was looking at the cost of these things. And I was like, well, one, I didn't know about these. If I don't know about it and I'm involved with these kind of events, we got to let people know about it. So it started with we have to let people know about it. And then from there, it became, well, if we're going to let people know about it, they're going to want one. And like, it's not fair if we tell people about this and then they're blocked in the same way we are. So let's start doing it for everybody, for as many people as we possibly can. And part of that mindset comes from my dad's a preacher, my grandfather is a preacher, my uncle's an assistant pastor, so kind of raised in that very church environment, and that the idea of like serving your community and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of all snowballed into this big idea, and I went to my dad and my mom one day, and I was like, it's not fair if I'm the only one that gets a service dog. We should help as many. I think I said we should help everybody get one. Everyone who needs one get one, because I was 9, and that's a phrase that seems feasible,
Yeah.
And that's still the goal to a certain extent. And I, much to not my surprise, because I was a very innocent young child, but I guess to my gratitude, my parents took me seriously, and they were like, okay, let's look at this. What does this look like? And so we started looking into it. My first idea was to mow lawns to raise money. And I told Dad if we mowed 50 lawns a week, we can have enough by the end of the year.
That's a lot of lawns.
And my dad, who was in his 40s at the time, looked at me and said, "Buddy, I like where your head's at." No. And so he said, "Think on it. Come back to me with more ideas. Your mom and I are going to keep working on the official side of stuff." And at that time, that just meant like building the website and all that kind of jazz. Came back with the idea to do a pledge per mile kind of hike thing on the Appalachian Trail. So the goal was to, over a number of years, hike 100 miles of the Appalachian Trail and have people pledge to donate a certain amount of money for every mile that we hiked on each trip.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
How many miles are you at so far?
We're at 100. So we finished.
Oh, wow.
When did we finish? My junior year of high school?
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to think. Yeah. Like, whole idea of G Cubed was so intertwined with the AT because there was a really big movement kind of at that time to show, especially in the diabetic community, of like diabetes doesn't have to hold you back. And there were so many pages that were posting actors and athletes and like artists and all these other kind of like really successful people with type 1 diabetes, and just being like, don't let it be a barrier to you. Don't get so like bogged down in it or stop taking care of yourself that you're not able to do the things you want to do. Like, there's always a way to do what you want to do. And so part of that was like, well, we're going to show that instead of just say it, like, which we did say it a lot. We did the whole actor showcase and all that kind of jazz. But we were like, we're going to show that as well. So that's where the Appalachian Trail thing came from. And so that started when I was 9. I actually worked with my schools a couple times to get like approved absences for like full weeks and half weeks to be able to go and hike at certain points during the school year. We hiked in Georgia, right near the start of the Appalachian Trail. We did the Springer Mountain Head, and then we actually went out and did some section hikes.
It's like you got a cool little traveling experience on top of fundraising.
Yes, and that was the other thing. The Appalachian Trail is like an international attraction. It's like one of the Disney worlds of outdoorsy experiences. I feel so bad because I left all mine at home, but we have bracelets that have our website on it, and then the hashtag that we use on all of our social medias that we would just hand out to people. And so sometimes we would give extra to certain groups if they were like, dude, because they would ask. They'd be like, give me extras, I'm going to spread them out. And we'd see people with our bracelets who we hadn't met before.
That's so
and be
cool.
like, you met so-and-so. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it was a super good traveling experience, but it also, the other thing, and I forgot about this because it's been so long since we've been out on the trails, but it was also an advocacy thing where they'd see the dog and we'd be like, technically he is working, so we can't do any petting or anything like that. And they're like, okay, I gotcha. He's working. What's he do? And then it just snowballed into that. And so, yeah.
That actually leads into my, I don't have this question written down, but I was wondering about it last time.
Mm-hmm.
Does he ever get breaks? Like, is there times when you're just like you can just chill? Is it just when you're home when you can just chill?
It's mostly just when we're home. When we're just like the two of us together somewhere, like we get single study rooms in the library here all the time just because it's nice, it's quiet. And when he's in there, sometimes I take his work clothes off, as we call them, which is his vest, and he has a training collar just to kind of keep him locked in. And we take those off, and I give him some scratches, and then he lays down on my backpack while I do my schoolwork. But other than that, he's locked in for most of the day. There's some places where he's a little more playful. So I do allow some people that we're like really close with or that we're like working with all the time. I don't mind if they give him a little scratch every once in a while. So like my research partners are allowed to pet him when he's working if he like approaches them first. I help out with the marching band. They're allowed to pet him if he approaches them. And that's the big rule is like if he approaches you and is like, hey, can I get a pet? Like you can give him a little scratch. So there, like I said, there are some people that like we bend the rules for, but that's not typical. Don't pet a service dog unless you have the express permission of the owner, no matter what. Don't ask normally because some people aren't cool with the ask. I don't mind. It just depends. But yeah. So I know you have a background in behavioral therapy. It's I'm trying to remember my words and stuff. but it's like the environment conditioning, where like when the light is on in a scanner box, something happens, versus if they do the behavior when the light's off, nothing happens. It's kind of like that, if that makes sense. So translate that into normal people words. They only have the dogs do certain tasks when they're in work clothes, and there's more like stringent and like less lenient policies for rewards or for reinforcement and like punishment and stuff like that. So yeah, and it's almost exclusively reinforcement based. The training. The only time that they have their clothes on is when they're out of the house, and so they associate that with like they associate the house with those kind of like more lenient policies, and then they associate outside, and then therefore their clothes with like the more stringent policies and stuff like that.
Kind of like if your leash is on versus if your leash is off.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Hey guys.
Today we're going to be doing a special video for National Diabetes Awareness Month. We're with our special guest, Dylan Lancaster.
Hello.
He is the founder of Dylan's Dogs for Diabetes, which is also known as D-Cubed. Dylan, did you want to start off by telling us a little bit about what D-Cubed is? And
yeah, so like you said, D-Cubed stands for Dylan's Dogs for Diabetes. What we do is we help improve the quality of life for type 1 diabetics mostly. What we do is we deal with service dogs. We help people get diabetic alert dogs, like my friend Theo down here, who is my diabetic alert dog. But we also have a couple other initiatives to just kind of general quality of life improvers.
Sweet. What is a diabetic alert dog, and how do they help manage type 1 diabetes?
Yeah, so diabetic alert dogs are dogs, like this guy here, that have been specially trained to smell for changes in blood sugar, to then alert their owner and let them know when they're having different blood sugar movements. So, ooh, that was right on the mic, bud. That is actually what an alert looks like. So I'm going to check my blood sugar real quick while we're talking. But yeah, they just let you know when it's shifting. Some dogs are specifically trained to let you know if it's going high or low. Most of the companies that we work with, they train for just a single alert because it...
Can you explain some of the challenges that you face in your work and how you overcome them?
Question. Yeah, I'll start with the biggest one, which was becoming a nonprofit status. Before D-Cubed was a nonprofit, like I said, we couldn't get anything from anywhere for any reason. I think the only exception to that was there was a local Chick-fil-A that one of our church members was like the general manager of, or like the general store manager of like the whole location. And so he helped us because Chick-fil-A, you don't have to have a nonprofit status to do like their spirit nights and stuff like that. And so he knew us. He knew that we had like the proper paperwork and like separate bank accounts and all that kind of jazz. And so that was pretty much the only thing we did. But we did it. I want to say we did it about every other month because that's all that was allowed, just based on the fundraising guidelines. And then we would try and get silent auction items, and some places would, do it without the nonprofit status, and some places wouldn't. So that was the first huge obstacle, was getting nonprofit status, because that opened the door to our next obstacle, which was just solved recently, which was the grant circuit and getting grants written. We had my mother is a teacher, and I have an uncle who was like a professor and like did a little research. So like I'd heard the word grant before, but didn't understand what it meant until we started the nonprofit, and I had to go speak to a bunch of boards of different companies and like trustee foundations, and it was just that's a lot, especially for like people who aren't used to that circuit. My dad's a preacher, I think I mentioned, and my mom's a teacher, so like I said, a vague understanding of grants, but not something super locked down on. But like I said, thankfully we have someone who does that pretty much full time for us now, which has been immensely helpful. So that's another one that we've been able to overcome. One thing we encounter is like turnout sometimes. So we'll go to different events, and they have, they'll have projected a certain turnout, and then it's just like no one comes. And it'll be like with non-extraneous factors like weather or anything like that. It's just like there's just no one there for some reason. And so that's one thing, is kind of like gambling on those tabling events and stuff like that sometimes. I would say the next one is we, DCube is mainly run by our board right now while I'm finishing up school. And so something that we're kind of looking for right now is more board members who are able to stay a little bit longer, because we've had um, a couple kind of come through in the last couple of years. So trying to find a more stable spot for that is definitely something we've been dealing with.
You want to use this moment to...
Yeah, if you don't mind. My name's Dylan. I'm the founder of Dylan's Dogs for Diabetes. You've been hearing me talk for a while. And we are looking for 2 to 3 board members to come and join the D-Cubed, board of directors is what we've been calling it. So we need people who are good at talking to people, good with fundraising, and kind of maybe social media experience, all that kind of jazz that comes with being involved in nonprofits, of human interaction, being able to go out and do fundraising yourself, being able to do things like tabling at events and all that kind of stuff. Another thing that we're looking for is like corporate level sponsorships. So from different businesses and things along those lines for our bigger yearly events like the 5K and like our Night of Music is our tentative name, which we don't know if that's happening yet, but we're excited for it. D-Cubed Night of Music, keep an eye out for it. So yeah, we're looking for board members. Please contact us. Our email will be in here somewhere, or I can say it right now.
It'll be attached to the video, and then also it'll be underneath. Yeah, so I'll put a little sidebar at the bottom.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. For your website, you said that you've already placed 16 Diabetic Alert Dogs. Mm-hmm. Can you walk us through the process of matching a dog with a family, and what kind of support you provide to ensure the dog is a good fit?
Yeah, so for the most part, we have a response form on the website that people fill out. They let us know what they're dealing with, kind of their personal situation, their like family dynamics, because that's a huge thing when introducing a dog. You want to make sure there's enough people to take care of it. If we're talking about kids and all that kind of stuff, we make sure how many other dogs are in the house and all that kind of jazz. But it starts with them reaching out to us mainly through our website, and then also we have different people messaging us on our social medias, like on Instagram, on Facebook, just checking in. Some people ask general questions about dogs, about diabetes, about Diabetic Alert Dogs, and all that other kind of stuff. But for the most part, it comes from forms on the website. And then as far as matching dogs go, a lot of the actual service dog companies that we work with have programs for that. When I got my first service dog, Jack, who is no longer with us, unfortunately, what we had to do before it was even thought about placing a dog is, one, we had to call different trainers to see if they would place dogs with someone that young, because most trainers from when we were calling when I was 9 wouldn't place a dog with a kid under 12 years old, a kid not in middle school. And we finally found one who would, as long as she could tell that like the family was involved. So the first person that we ever worked with that took both D-Cube seriously and also helped out kids under 12 with Diabetic Alert Dogs was a company called NIDAD, was the original company, which then became Lily Grace Service Dogs. The trainer was Lily Grace, who is a wonderful person. And she's an incredible trainer of Diabetic Alert Dogs. She did it was like taking a personality test, and you would answer, like how active you are, what kind of activities you like doing. I think it asked about like your love languages to see if you were like a super touchy person or not, and all that kind of jazz. But it was like a super long, like 50 question thing, 50 to like 80. So it's like a really in-depth, and different companies have different levels, but all of them have that kind of like, let me know your personality so that I can find a puppy that works for you, that will work for you. And then the way that some of these like larger companies work as well is they will have dogs going through the program that maybe like aren't assigned to anybody yet, and then they'll also do like bespoke training where like you'll come in, you'll say I need a dog, and they'll start from puppy. And really good trainers / really experienced trainers they're able to kind of tell a little bit about pup personality at a very young age, so they're able to kind of start that little personality thing. But yeah, most of the time it's left up to the trainers because they're the dog experts. They're the puppy people.
It sounds really cool because they're like also they're trying to make a good fit for you, but they also want to make sure the dog is contained as
Yeah,
well.
it can cause super big problems if the dog is not a match for the future owner's lifestyle. And unfortunately, that happens every once in a while. Something unchangeable happens. You go from living in the suburbs to living in the city for your job, and then you had a dog that enjoyed running in wide open spaces and enjoyed having a backyard, and all of a sudden lives on Fifth Ave in New York, and it's like your green space is that tree right there.
Yeah.
That's it. But
The dog becomes
yeah.
depressed.
Yeah, and it can be
Yeah.
super bad for the dogs. And sometimes, some dogs adjust to it because if some dogs, if they're with their person, that's like it. That's all they need. And some dogs, if they're not able to adjust, it can actually lead to like behavior issues. And if that happens, they'll actually they'll do like a dog swap. And so they'll find a dog that matches, like has a personality better for kind of city living and a better temperament for stuff like that. And the other dog will go back and get a little bit of retraining done and maybe go back out to a different home. But yeah, it doesn't happen often, but it is, it's a byproduct.
Yeah, and I think it is unfortunate that a lot of places don't do the elementary kids, like they don't
Yeah.
allow that. But I can understand why, because if you don't have the parental support,
Yeah, you gotta have a lot of parental support to have a service dog. And I mean, plenty of kids have the ability to feed a dog, play with it, take it out, but then to make sure that you're maintaining a dog's training as you're going throughout your day-to-day life as a kid, and not, accidentally punishing things like alerts because they're annoying, or which I mean they're supposed to be. They're supposed to get you to check your blood sugar.
yeah,
And all that kind of stuff is a super like dangerous balance game, which is why you need to have parental support. And it used to be that, like, regardless if you said that you were getting it for a child, people weren't, they didn't ask any more questions. It was like, sorry, we don't do that. But it's become more that they start looking into the family situation, because a lot of the dogs that we've been placing recently, especially, have been to families with like much younger children, like 3, 5. I think our most recent one was a 3-year-old actually. So yeah, it's become more
Really
commonplace to do that.
that's really cool though.
Mm-hmm.
What can others do to help support your mission? I know you talked a little bit about needing board members. We got you to help you. But what else do you need, or what would you need from us, or just community?
No, yeah. So our community has had an incredible impact on D Cubed. So I think I mentioned it, but my first service dog passed away, and that was very unexpectedly, kind of out of nowhere. He just started having seizures, and then this dog was the champion of doing things to the fullest because he also had lymphoma. And they found a mass on his heart about a week before he left us. And it was just I left him at home, which I never did with Jack. Jack did everything with me, but I left him at home that next week to kind of let him rest. And it was also in March actually. And I got a call from my parents, and they were like, "We gotta go to the vet, bud. It's time." And so we put Jack to sleep that night. It was terrible. I didn't go to school the next day. I didn't go to school the rest of the week. I don't think it was on a Wednesday. And they got it. I didn't need an excuse or anything. They knew. The whole school knew what had happened. It was, there were some people that like made posters and like sent me like cards and stuff like that. And then we'll get to the happy part of this, which is our community is insane. So Theo is named Theo because it's short for Theodore, and it is a name of Greek origin, meaning divine gift. And that's because that's kind of what he was. Our family wasn't, obviously, it's a few days after the passing of our last dog. We weren't even in talks of getting another service dog. And then my dad was like, I want to say, before I'd gotten back to school, he was like, "Dylan, I don't know how it happened, but they've raised $1,000 already for you to get a new dog."
Aww.
And I was like, "What are you talking about?" For context, to kind of tell you what happened, I've been in marching band my whole life since ninth grade, which is as early as you could do marching band in my school system. I did marching band, and one of the band moms, that was like a family friend of ours at the time as well, was so like touched by Jack's passing and how much it affected not just me but everybody, in the ensemble that I was in. It spread like wildfire, and that's because of our community that it spread like that. Um, my friends in band were sending it to different like band repost pages and meme pages and stuff like that. I ended up on a professional jazz vibraphonist Instagram story
Oh,
out on a
wow.
call for support, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
And it just, the community took this and they ran with it. And I mentioned I didn't go to school that week, but I did go to percussion practice because I loved it. And it's, we express ourselves through music.
Yeah.
And it was a sad show that we were practicing anyway. So it was kind of nice and cathartic. And towards the end of that practice, the front ensemble section leader came up to me and he handed an envelope and he said, "This is from us. We love you, man, and we're here for you." And not only was it this really sweet card that was signed by everybody and had a bunch of messages in it, and some of them even put like extra slips of paper in there, to write everything that they wanted to say about Jack and about me. But it was a bunch of like cash from these kids, like these
Wow.
literal high schoolers, some of whom like had just started jobs and stuff, and some of whom are working like two jobs to help pay for like percussion and stuff like that. Um, and so yeah, our community is super involved with us, and they've helped us out a bunch. That's the biggest example because it's the biggest like single community effort that's happened, that I can think of specifically.
So coming off of that, where do you see D Cubed in the next 5 years?
Ooh,
And
great question.
yeah, what are your goals for the organization as it continues to grow?
Yeah, we've had a couple meetings where that question has been posed and about a billion different answers as it comes. At one point in time, and this is still kind of where I'm at, is I want D cubed, and I think the board is on board with this as well, to become kind of like the household name, for diabetic assistance, especially when it comes to things like service dogs and all that kind of jazz. At one point, I said I wanted to be like Alexander Shannara billboard level, where like you can't go anywhere without seeing something from us. Um,
Alabama people will get it.
yeah, that was a narrow casting to all my Alabamians. But yeah, so that's one of our big ones is like we want as many people to know about us and to come to us as possible. Um, in the next 5 years, it's a great question. I mean, I see us kind of maybe just like a couple steps ahead of where we are now. I see us with, hopefully, an in-person location for our 5K, which is something that we're working towards. We want it to still be like, a virtual event. That way you can do it from anywhere. But we want to have an in-person location. That way, if people in our community want to join, it's a lot easier to do. You can do like the day of sign up and all that kind of jazz. Or, even people from further away. Sometimes people will do like 5K tours where they'll just go around and run 5Ks for a year, and they'll do it in different locations. So it'd be cool to have an in-person version for that. We definitely want to get this night of music, kicked off and all finished, in the next 5 years, as terms of like making it kind of our annual spring fundraiser. We want to, something that we're aiming at doing as we move throughout the years is to have, like nailed down super secure idea of our winter fundraiser, fall/winter, which right now is our virtual 5K, and then a super good like nailed down idea of our spring fundraiser, which right now we're looking at being the night of music. So that's some stuff that we're definitely looking at, like being the D cubed standards as we move throughout these years. You start, number one, don't stop. Number two, get people, that will listen to you. And number three is like put it on paper, make it in writing. The minute you write it down, it's yours.
So yeah, those are great goals to
Yeah.
have.
Thank you.
Yes. What advice would you give to other young people who are looking to start their own nonprofits to make a difference, to help make a difference in the world? Or what advice would you give them to make a difference in the world?
What you want to do, just start as soon as you can. Make a little plan on how you want to incorporate it into your life, and just start incorporating it to the best of your ability.
Yeah. You don't want to be the person that comes up with an idea and then later on finds out somebody stole that idea. So yeah, So kind of going along with that, you said what you wanted to tell the young people. What do you want to tell parents that have children with type 1 diabetes?
It's a lot. And I obviously don't have the parental perspective, but as I got older and working with D-Cubed, I obviously started talking more to the parents and less to the kids. So I mean, the stories I've heard are just like insane, of just the different challenges that come with every single age of diabetes, from like the inability to communicate blood sugar issues when you're super young, of like not knowing when you're low, not knowing when you're high, or even like with like infant diabetics not being able to do anything except cry, and all that kind of jazz, to the kind of teenage diabetic issue of one, like puberty and that hormone imbalance makes life so much worse with diabetes because your insulin ratios and resistances change, and there's a bunch of other factors that contribute to blood sugar that goes along with that. And then the other issue of you're able to communicate your blood sugar, you just don't want to, or it's just such a drag that it's not something you even want to think about dealing with anymore. Or diabetes is also, there's some correlates with different mood disorders, and anxiety disorders. So there's a lot that kind of springs up in those teenage years. It's a lot to deal with. All that to say, the more that you are able to work with your kid, and the more that you're able to learn about diabetes as well, the more, I don't want to say the easier it gets, because I don't like making blanket statements, but generally speaking, the easier it gets. Part of why I've had, only 2 like full crash outs, full like seizures with diabetes, is because my parents were super, super, super in on making sure I knew what was up, on making sure I knew how to give my own shots, how to check my own blood sugar, how to try and calculate my own carbs. And the quicker that you can, or the more ingrained that you can get that, not just with your kid, but maybe even as a family, because that's the other thing. I'm an only child, so it's a little bit easier than with multiple kids at once. But like, diabetes was a family endeavor where like my dad knew how to do everything, my mom knew how to do everything, after a certain amount of time, and after they learned everything that needed to be learned, they started teaching me and making sure that I knew how to do it right. I knew the reasons behind it. I knew that they weren't just giving me shots to hurt me, that it was actually helping me. Yeah, in summary, make diabetes a family learning endeavor, as unfortunate as it is, and the better outcomes that you're going to have. And there's actually, sorry to get a little researchy on it. There's I haven't read the paper yet, but a really interesting paper that I've been looking at that talks about how family systems are super, super important to helping, younger diabetics maintain, blood sugars through like different people, monitoring and like checking up. Have you checked your blood sugar today? What is it right now? And all that kind of stuff. And there's really good outcomes on it. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Those are really great tips. That's all the questions that I have for you today. Did you want to add anything? Did you want to add anything at the end? Maybe give out your socials so people can.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to start by saying thank you so much for the opportunity to interview. I think Curanostics is super cool.
Thank you.
I think everything that you guys are doing is going to be super awesome, and also super, super helpful to families with young diabetics, because there's a lot of terms in diabetes that are kind of foreign words, like diabetic ketoacidosis, which is too many syllables in my opinion. And all that other kind of stuff. So I think it will, I think this will be really helpful. So I'm super excited about it. And then thank you as well for, having me on just once again. I'll go through my socials real quick. So the socials for D-Cubed are, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook, by just searching Dylan Socks for Diabetes, or if you want our specific tag on Instagram, is at dcubed328. We are on X, technically speaking, but there's not a lot of activity over there, so unless you just feel super inclined to, you don't have to check it out. What else? Yeah, so like I said earlier, we are still looking for board members. Please get in contact with us through dcubed.org. We'd love to have you. Let us know all about your cool little skills and what you're able to do for us. And then corporate sponsors are always going to be super huge and super helpful for all of our events. So any business owners watching, if you want people in different communities across Alabama to know about you and to know that you love helping out and supporting local causes, get in contact with us. We'll do fun flyers and stuff like that at our events for you. And then finally, something that's super exciting that happened very recently is DCubed has been nominated as one of the best of businesses in Huntsville, which is where we're based out of, is that kind of Harvest Huntsville area. Please go vote for us. You can vote as many times as you like. I think we're putting the link in the description, which is awesome. So yeah, help us become one of the best of businesses of Huntsville in that kind of nonprofit category. Yeah, I think that's all I have. So just remember, until there's a cure, there's dcube.org.
Beautiful. Perfect. So just always remember, like and subscribe, and we'll have all of our handles and DQ channels posted in the caption below. All of our handles are at Curanostics. That's X, Instagram, TikTok, all that fun stuff. Check out our TikTok; it's new. And yeah, and stay on the lookout for our next video. Dylan, we really enjoyed having you. Thanks for being with us. And yeah, make sure to go check out all of his stuff. And we enjoy working with you more in the future.
Yeah, it was wonderful interviewing here, and I'm super excited about Curanostics. I think you guys are going to be super helpful to a lot of communities, but especially to diabetic communities. So yeah.
Yeah, we really appreciate having you. We love what DCube's doing. We love what you guys stand for. And that's why we wanted to have you on the show. So
yeah, awesome. Goes both ways. You guys rock.
Thank you.